This is normal Calvin.
Normal Calvin, normal
Normal
Calvin.
Calvin game.
Yeah.
Well, what's up, dude?
Yep.
Last week or not even last week, like 2 weeks ago. It's been a fucking bit of a ride for the last while,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yep.
we had our first guest on. That was fun. It was fun, but I definitely feel like I bottled it a little bit. I feel like, as it was said afterwards, it felt like like too much of a
Mm.
interview or like a review. But like to know I wanted to get to know who our guy was, right? Like, um, Brian was great. Appreciate him coming on and talking to us about, you know what I mean, just like how he got into games and just, you know, what his daily go around is, because like it was a very interesting thing to see his path into all of this stuff, but also just like a nice trend of like, oh, I'm doing this like thing, but then that thing's building into this other thing, and then I'll do a little bit over here, and then go over to this part and do a little bit in board games, and but there's all like a very like central thing. It's all like coming together. You know what I mean? I think he's gonna have some cool stuff in the future.
Yeah, I thought it was fine because I think one thing is it put our one of our original audiences that we had in mind, which was people that were indies that really wanted to or that could, and we wanted to make videos that could help people make money so they could do it full time, and it was really cool to talk to somebody that was one of our intended audiences when we started doing this.
Yeah, good man. Fair play to him. There's so many people out there that are like that. They're just making cool stuff like constantly.
Yes. Yeah, we got more tools nowadays. It's easier to make stuff. We got an explosion of creatives, and it's so hard to make money doing it. So we're gonna continue to move down that direction.
Yeah, but one of the things
Um,
that came up was like we didn't really know like, I mean, we've never really talked about ourselves. We've never really talked about like how we grew up into any of these things. Um,
mhm.
so figure we might as well have
Yeah.
the start there.
So yeah. It was a good point that we haven't really talked that much about our background, and it's So I was at a gathering, a meetup, over the weekend, and one thing I do like to ask people that is
Working on the weekend.
one of my favorite questions to ask people as an icebreaker is, what is your favorite game of all time? And we went around the room to have all the new people say it, because whenever I hear somebody's favorite game of all time, it tells me everything about them. I just make all these assumptions and
So funny.
stereotypes. And I will say this: so there's a lot of people that rattled off their favorite. This might surprise you because this really, really surprised me. Nearly half of them said Factorial, and then nearly half of the other ones said Dark Souls. There's very few in betweens.
I'm old, bro. I'm old. I'm old.
That was so interesting to me that was like truly the new meta. And I'll just throw in one more game name because I've asked this to other people, and usually Hollow Knight would be a third one. So like, I swear these three games truly dominate that conversation.
Hmm. Dark Souls.
So
Yeah. Dark Souls
yeah,
1,
yeah,
was it?
yeah, well, yeah. Dark Souls 1 is usually what they cited. So
I gotta get the remastered version, honestly, and just give it a go. Like, actually, just like bash my head through the wall and just fucking deal with it. Because yeah, there's obviously something special there that I'm just completely missing out on.
yeah, I have bashed my head against that wall, and I did not like it. But
Yeah, no, I feel pain in my future. That's
yeah,
all I can say. Like, I can definitely feel just remorse and pain. This is also
yeah,
the generation that has broken more controllers than any other generation previous to them. So, yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
So yeah, I don't
fucking
necessarily want to.
masochists.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to talk about this crazy generation that's grown up. But
It's
yeah,
fun that Factoria is up there, though. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
super just like wide, way big industry. Like a game that I mean, just it's like the most amount of efficiency that you can build into one thing that people have just like
Mhm.
perfected into their builds over the years, right? But gives you everything that you want from like industry builder, RTS,
Mhm.
Minecraft at
Yeah, yeah.
the same
It,
time.
yeah. The game's kind of interesting because not a lot of people talk about it, I don't think, but I think a lot of people play it. Like they just hop on Steam for 500 hours at a time playing this game. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's like, yeah, so I can see that.
It feels like
But yeah,
RimWorld
oh
in a lot of ways like that, you know?
yeah, exactly. That was brought up as a secondary
Mm.
game I saw. But yeah, I don't necessarily want to talk about the next generation, but let's field it to you. I don't know if I've ever even asked you this, to be honest. Let's just start with a hard question. What is your favorite game of all time?
Jesus, who knows? Who fucking knows? I don't know at all. I really
Yeah,
don't know.
you have such a strong opinion on so many things. You got to put your foot down this time,
Oh, my
as you
favorite
as you
game of
can.
all time? Favorite game of all time. Or
Yeah,
favorite game growing up, or just favorite game of all time?
I mean, so, so all time, and it does like factor in like like relative, I guess, like how much impact it had on you at the time as well.
Whoa. Yeah, it's so crazy because like I could tell you different phases of life in different
Hmm.
games that I was playing. Like that's
Yeah,
that's that's the ultimate thing.
we might
Like
get into that.
and then
Uh,
I've never been a necessarily like somebody will go and say like, "Oh, what's your favorite music genre?" or like, "What's your favorite artist?" or something. And I've never had like a favorite anything like that. I have favorite in genres. I have a favorite in feeling, like when I'm feeling this way, I have a favorite here. So like I could tell you what my favorite MOBA is. I could tell you what my favorite MMO is, but I find it very difficult to go and lock down and say what is my actual favorite game.
yeah, it's a hard question, and I mean, I could ask like different questions, like what game had the most impact on you, but I do like to leave the question open ended. And if you are struggling enough, I could go first. It's up to you.
Yeah, you might as well. You know what I mean? Again, like I could rattle off a couple, but I don't think I'd be being genuine to the thing as well at the same time, you know?
Yeah, yeah. In that case, my favorite game of all time is Mountain Blade Warband.
Are you
Which,
serious?
yeah, yep.
One of the
I
older ones or one of the newer
It is
ones?
yeah, it's like 2010 game, I think.
Yeah,
It's one of the older games,
yeah.
but I could explain why. So most people, so for those that don't know, Mountain Blade is a it's kind of like Total War, but you actually play as a character. Like you hop in this large army simulation, and you also on the single player side you grow from one character to a whole kingdom. I actually don't care about the single player. Most people do. The vast majority of people
Hmm.
love the single player.
Yeah.
I loved it because when you hop into multiplayer, you are basically playing Helm's Deep. Like in Lord of the Rings, you are. I swear, it really recreates the feeling. You watch these people next to you building up a ladder, and then or several people. There's probably like a dozen people because this game fields like easily fields 120 versus 120.
Oh my
I don't
God.
know. I don't know how they did it because there's so few games do this. Like only Planet Side, to my knowledge, does this many people. But there's just seas of people everywhere you look. There's siege towers flying and ladders going up, and the enemies knocking them down. There's shield walls. There's cavalry, armies of cavalry that you can see that are flanking to your sides. It's so beautiful. But ultimately, why I love it is because I played it with friends. Like I played with like 10 to 12 friends at a time,
Okay.
and we could do all these things that I'm saying. Is like we could form shield walls, we could
Yeah,
we
not
could
get
just
wrecked like the
yeah, yeah,
entire time.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a different experience coordinating with that kind of team, and it just seemed like such a sandbox of a game. I could go on and on about this game. I won't. I'll just say one more thing that is not obvious. So when you play a small game, a 5v5 game like a MOBA or Overwatch, if you fuck up, everyone is gonna, yell at you
Okay.
because because you're 20% of uh, your team. When you
I have
are,
gotten death threats before, for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A few of them.
The less people you have on your team, the more sweaty and the more you hate your teammates for not pulling their weight. But when you have 120 teammates, like people don't care.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying, I mean, yeah, we did goof around, but it's like it is so nice to have that feeling, and you could see it in the community. Everyone had fun. They joked around when your teammates screwed up. Everyone joked around. It was such a nice feeling because nobody felt like they were, vital to the
Hmm.
success of the team. So, if I had to just like name one thing, that was a great consequence of having big multiplayer.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my favorite game of all time.
No, I love it. Yeah, it's probably some great times there playing with friends. How many hours do you think you put into that game?
Oh, that was the most I've put in, which is 600. It's just not as much as you crazy gamers out there, but for me, 600 was the most.
600 is a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
600 is a lot. Yeah, it's like I find it difficult because the more I sit here and the more I think, the more I realize that like um it's more about not necessarily the game, but the social impact for me that has been
Yeah.
the bigger things. Like the most impactful games from like my childhood and stuff like that are like Spyro, right? Spyro Enter the Dragon. You know what I mean? Just quaint collectors, just move around different levels, interesting visuals, cool areas, just off the wall stuff, right? And really well put together platformer, 3D platformer, right? And Mission Impossible, if on the PS1
Oh, I never
was
played that.
yeah, Mission Impossible on the PS1 was like the most crazy like video game adaptation of a movie that there was, but it was original to Hitman. It was, I think, either Hitman came out on the wait, did Hitman come out in the demo disc? I don't think it did. Um,
Oof.
no,
I don't know.
I don't think it did. But it was, I think it was before that one. At least I played it before the original Hitman. You had puzzles to solve throughout the entire thing. It felt a lot like N64's, GoldenEye, but you had a load of different mechanics, like being able to change into different people and stuff like that, and to really get around these puzzles. And I just had a great time with those things. Like my mom would play with me, like help me out in places where I couldn't do things. It was always fun, but like it is, I mean, it's. I think the biggest ones for me have always been ones that have like major social impact when it comes down to competitive gaming. Those are the ones that have always had the major impact on me. Now there's loads of story games, and I can tell you like probably my ultimate favorite game is probably, even though I've only really been able to play it through one time, is probably the Beginner's Guide,
Mm.
or but it's that or like it's probably not Stanley Parable, but I really enjoyed both of those. But the Beginner's Guide really had like a formidable feeling put on me, but that really then changed like a trajectory in my career and everything else after that. So I'd say like that one's like way up there, but you don't get the same feeling unless you are competitively playing World of Warcraft. You don't get the same feeling unless you're playing competitively Counter Strike. Like Counter Strike CSS, I've put in 1,200 hours over the years or something between map creation, asset generation, like being like my first times working in Photoshop and everything like that, learning CS3 and making skins and gloves and stuff for servers. It's the first time I've ever dealt with a FTP. It's the first time I've ever dealt with yeah like Lua files and having to like really work with like kind of like back end tools, and all of those things were completely formidable in my existence. But you take 5 people and put against another 5 people, and you play every single night as a team and be as coordinated as you can be to like take down every single opponent in front of you at the highest level that you can be, which we were playing as high as we could. We were, it's we would go to land tournaments, we would play in tournaments and stuff like that. Like we were trying real hard to not go pro. That wasn't the point, but it was just to play as hard as we could. And this was back in the day when like, yeah, there's no skin economy. There's no things. We just had Dust 2 and you had your basic maps and you jumped in and you fucking screamed at people and told them they were fucking shitheads and you beat their ass, dude. That's what you did. You fucking shot these people and then you recorded little clips on, hypercam and you fucking put up a little montage video, and that was it. Same thing, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, the very, very first one that came out, right?
Yeah.
We did Search and Destroy on MLG.com, Major League Gaming, and we were playing in tournaments in that 3v3s and 5v5s, and absolutely like obliterating everybody that was in front of us for the most part, and then we would just get doinked, and it was like that was because we had Americans and Europeans playing on the same team trying to play against like Australians because the matchmaking in MLG was like ridiculous. It was like you have this open tournament bracket, but the open tournament bracket's for people all across the bloody world. So it's like, oh yeah, of course, and then we're just like reliant on Activision servers to just like put us in the right places. So sometimes I would just have like 200 plus ping and like, oh okay, well we're gonna just lose this game. Like,
Those were the days.
yeah, like we're just gonna lose this game. So you mean it's same thing then with World of Warcraft. Like you try to get onto an end, like whatever server you're on. I don't care what server you're on. It doesn't need to be like the best server in the thing, but just you try to be on the best guild on your server. You try to be a PvE guild or whatever, right? You try to raid end game the day the content comes out every single weekend or every single week, 3 to 4 times a week, we'd be raiding, plus then theory crafting on the weekend, plus then, constant bickering and drama and like who's getting loot and DKP points and all this other bullshit. Like, you know, those were some of the most stressful times. But you take, 25 people and put them into this thing and give them all one goal, to take down this boss, be as coordinated as possible. If you get hit, you die and you wipe the entire raid. You lose everybody's time, right? We only have so many wipes that we can do a night, and we can only deal with so many problems before, people start imploding and everything else like that, right? Those were the crazy times because I literally had to interview. Like I had to go onto a form. I had to
Yeah.
submit a whole questionnaire and an interview for a raid slot. I had to, show them spreadsheets of my builds and show them that like yeah, like I'm theory crafting and I know my class inside and out. Like I know the
You knew you were
damage.
gonna get the job. You're like, oh, I got
No,
this,
because
right?
like
Oh,
that's
it was
just
hard.
that's
Nice.
that's what you had to do. Like that's what you had to do. Like you had to show your numbers. Like that's what you had to do on in for the guild that I was going for consequences on EU's Nordrasil. It was crazy. Um, and I mean, I managed to do it and managed to then raid for an entire season and a half, all the way through like part of end of Wrath of Lich King and then into Cataclysm, and the whole of Cataclysm, and then a little bit after that into Pandaria. But my God, like that's hard. It's hard by like a timing standpoint, but when you actually finish something and like down it on the highest difficulty and everything kind of comes together, there's some poetry there that like nobody ever talks about. That not everybody gets to feel, not everybody gets to see. It's like really like, oh, okay, like this is what it is. Like this is what this entire level 80 grind grew up into. This is everything that that it needed, that it's supposed to be. And you just don't get that these days because if you don't do that stuff, you don't necessarily get that feeling. It's like loot and scoot, right? It's like a lot more like Diablo. Like
Yeah.
we're going in, we're just killing shit, and I'm hopefully gonna get some loot. But in the other side, you're like, I'm trying. Like I'm really trying. I'm really, really, really trying. So desperately. I am sweating at my keyboard, desperately trying to just like keep people topped. Keep because I was a healer, so it's just like
Hmm.
keep people healed the entire time. The amount of stress that you have to put on yourself, multitasking, all of that stuff, and if you mess up, you wipe, and everybody's gonna shout at you, and it's your fault, and you just kept 24 other people from success. That's like a hard thing to put on your back, and especially when you know that like you're right up against the gear ratio, right? Like you're right in that spot where like I'm kind of like I'm not overpowered or underpowered. I'm pretty underpowered for everything that I'm trying to do, and you're just like be perfect, just be perfect. And I love that. I do love that because there's a sensational feeling that comes out from those moments where like your team based tactics are just working so well that like I don't think that many gamers get to feel, and they're also not necessarily chasing like those feelings. Like I think those moments for me are probably dead until I'm probably like 40, and I hope that World of Warcraft's still going, or some MMO is still out there like doing something like that, and then I can maybe calm down and get back into it. But I probably don't have the gamer brain anymore to like really do it. Like those days are behind. There's only a brick of time that you can really like dedicate yourself to a job that is World of Warcraft PVE end game rating for sure. Um,
College is the best time because nobody's going to classes. That's the best time to game.
yeah, I fucked up so hard in college. Like
Oh,
I absolutely should have. Like there's so many different things. Like if I could go back and like redo college, for sure I would redo
yeah.
college. Like absolute goddamn lutely would redo college. And a big portion of that was because yeah, like just I almost dropped out in the first year because I was
Yeah,
just
I
playing
understand.
StarCraft. I was playing StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty. It came out and I went, "Huh, I could ladder. I could get one ladder game in." And then I
Yeah.
play the game and then all of a sudden it's like 3 minutes to class and I'm a couple of miles away and I'm like, I'll miss that one." And then I'm like, all right, well, when's my next class? Okay, here, cool. Ladder a little bit more. Maybe I'll just stay in. Maybe I'll just stay in. Then all of a sudden it's 3 p.m. I've been laddering since 7 a.m. I'm
Yeah.
now platinum, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Fuck, I missed like every class for today. Like,
Mhm.
shit, fuck. All right, fucking, that sucks. But yeah, like, that's what it was. That's what it became, which wasn't great.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
this
I was gonna say I definitely love the breakdown and yeah, very relatable stuff. Although I never did join a top guild or a really great guild, and yeah, I had a question like around multiplayer in general. So like CS wasn't your first multiplayer game, right?
not my
Or
first
was it?
not my first multiplayer game, but you have to understand. So I grew up in Ireland,
Hmm.
where before before the internet really. Um, so like we had dial up way later than
Yeah.
America had internet,
Yeah.
and like my parents still at their home still have 2 megabyte down internet. That's the best
Oh my
internet that they
god.
can get. That's it.
Oh
That's the
my
best
god.
internet. You can if one thing is using the internet,
Yeah.
the other thing doesn't work, right? Like nothing else works. I couldn't stream Netflix there while I was out there like a couple of years ago. It's cracked. I don't know. You know what I mean? I can't believe that that's still the case, but that it is. That's the genuine truth. Um, Tons of reasons for that economically. Ireland, on a total side note, but like Ireland was the first country to be hooked up to the internet because uh, America sent the cables for all of Europe to be hooked up into their net across the Atlantic, and then the exchange is in Ireland. So because we're the first port um, to Europe, so it's one of those fun things. But in part of that, then it means that like all of our lines will cost a shit ton of money, and then are all totally the oldest technology that you could possibly get. So we end up in this like bad way over there. The government also doesn't give a flying fuck about the internet, and they're all old fucking yabos who have no clue what the hell they're doing. So they sold our whole private. Look, we had a nationalized network for the internet, right? For the internet telecommunications, they sold it to a French billionaire. So a French billionaire who doesn't give a flying fuck owns the entire telecommunications network of Ireland. Like, for God's sake, like, what are we doing here, people? Like, fucking take it back. Like, Jesus Christ. Um, but yeah, what I mean? So I didn't have a whole lot of those things. So like the first time that I ever really tried to play a multiplayer game was Age of Empires 2. And I wanted to play Age of Empires 2 with somebody else. And we tried desperately. Like this was like a time where there weren't like lobbies. Like you had to like port forward, be on a kind of like a direct net, and use some other different stuff to be able to like link your IPs together so that you could even see each other when you go into the multiplayer thing and then hit like create game and try to even see lobbies. You couldn't just openly see everything. It was very much like the days of LAN and stuff like that. But like we never managed to get any of that working, and I never got to play it. So I played mostly just like single player games on the console, PS1, and then back. It was the first one, which I didn't own. It was like my babysitter owned, but it was like a Commodore 64, and I got to like play like Gauntlet, and Gauntlet was so fucking fun,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
fucking fun.
yeah,
Um, you mean Gauntlet and like the Simpsons, like scrolling game, which was fucking brilliant. Like, I mean, some of these things, are definitely formidable, but they're definitely like the start of everything, right? Are a building block into kind of like what we have right now. But I think the thing that just really like that always kept me coming back was this idea of social competitiveness,
yeah.
and can can we just keep grinding away? I never. I mean, that's the thing that I always said. It's like I'm not like a good gamer. Like I'm not like a gamer. Like I've never really cared about like games in general. Like I think these days I could completely take it or leave it. Right? Like there's sometimes I just want to sit down and just like fuck around in a game, but it's such a time investment. It's such like an extra like a brain and mental time investment that like I mean, the thing that I always wanted to get out of it was just the act of playing hard, doing something that is difficult, and doing it coordinated with other people is just something that I just always latched to the most. Yeah.
Yeah. That's man. I I a lot of the things you're saying is actually making me think about some of my favorites, and I never really thought about how much social has driven me. I've always just assumed I was like, I'm just more of a single player kind of guy nowadays, and maybe before, but that's actually not true. Like, so really quick to jump on the FPS thing.
Yeah.
So my first multiplayer FPS was actually Daikatana.
Mm.
And everyone knows that Daikatana was like universally panned as like this is one of the worst games ever. But since it was my very first FPS, I was actually blown away. I've never played against people online before. I jumped in a little bit late, kind of like you, and yeah, I was really blown away, and I had a really good first impression of Daikatana for sure. Um, but kind of similar to what you said. At, so at number two, I have Heroes of Might and Magic.
Sure.
Classic
Yeah.
strategy turn-based game, and
Yeah.
really, really formative in terms of what I like. but my number 3 game is Guilty Gear, kind of as a series. Guilty Gear is the anime fighting game,
Mm-hmm.
and I will quickly relate to a similar story to what you said about WoW. So Guilty Gear, that game really blew me away when I first tried it, but nobody really played it because it was really obscure at the time, and most people were playing Smash Brothers. So
Mm-hmm.
Melee was out. Like, why would you play anything but Melee? Like, literally everyone played it. So what I would do is I didn't really have anybody to play with. I would just play the single player modes, but I would also watch all these Japanese high level videos
Oh.
that back in those days, and I just like I kind of learned to like uh, practice by simply watching videos and stuff. It was a very different route than most people go, but in particular, there is this guy who just won every match, like most of the time. He was like the god. He was the Michael Jordan of Guilty Gear at the time. And I watched this dude like win every week. And his name was Ogawa. And kind of poetically, when Guilty Gear Xrd finally came out, I was like, oh god, a new Guilty Gear. I'm in a position where I can actually practice against people and try to get good. So I played the game, and like you said about WoW getting to a high level, I got to a very, very high level at that game. And one of the years at Evo, I got placed into the same bracket as Ogawa.
Oh,
So,
no way.
but he was on the opposite side, so I had to earn my way there.
Okay.
But I was very, very good at the game. I went undefeated, and we moved all the way to winners finals of that bracket.
No
And
way.
I gotta play against this guy.
No
It was
way.
it was a little spark of surrealness. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
I
I still
watched
love
this guy so much, and then like 10 years later, I'm playing him. I mean, not as an equal, but like technically,
that. Well,
I was an
you're
equal.
there
Yeah,
at the bracket.
yeah,
You're in
yeah,
the
yeah,
game.
yeah,
You're right
yeah.
beside him, you know?
Exactly, exactly. So I felt like I earned it. He whooped my ass. It was. I used to wonder what it would be like to defend against his offense. I was like, oh, okay, this is very suffocating. But so yeah, he whooped my ass. But it was very I don't know. It was a very special moment, and I just wanted to say that because I didn't play your games to that level, but I think I can understand what you're saying.
I
Like
think
that victory.
look, that's to the level. You know what I mean? Like there's only you mean you can only play so hard, you know? And like that you mean, come on. I don't know what kind of Evo tournament it was, if it was Evo and you're getting up
Yeah.
there into the actual bracket. Like you know what I mean, then
Oh.
you mean you're playing. You know what I mean? You're really playing. You're playing harder than most people. You're in the esports on the stage, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not, I wasn't doing that. I'm just sitting down just like keyboard worrying, keyboard worrying whatever against like myself and against this arbitrary like boss that they've put in front of me, you know? But
That that stuff is hard. It's definitely a different skill set. Cause just real quick, like, cause 1v1 is easy to control.
yeah.
A MOBA is a little hard to control, but man, no, the WoW raids were pretty tough. So don't sell yourself short. It is a different difficulty.
Yeah, like it's all I don't know, it's all different, but it's all relative. Like I mean, Counter Strike has its own moments of 1v1, where just everything has to be right. Everything has to play right. You have to hold your spot. If you are getting rolled on B and Dust 2 and you're just constantly getting rolled in B and Dust 2, like, and nobody's there to support you and you're not getting that support, like, you got to figure out a way to stop that push because they're just going to keep pushing you every single time unless you work with your team in the most logical way to be like, hey, I need support. Like, they keep doing this. Like, I also need to find the right position to counter all of that stuff. There's just a different kind of play, than when you're playing competitively. That
Yeah,
was the thing that
yeah.
always gripped me. Like, look, Portals aside, Half-Life's aside, um, Jesus, how many other games, you know what I mean, over the years, uh,
Dark Souls.
Ah, yeah, Dark Souls, but like I'm even just thinking about trying to think about some of the single player games from like growing up and everything like that. But you mean these things were always interesting and entertaining to play, but not necessarily like the most formidable, right? Like they got you to like Oblivion, right? First time you ever play Oblivion. Um, This is the first time I've ever played an open world RPG. It's probably one of the first times I've ever really played like a true to life RPG. And I'm sitting down at the computer uh, in whatever time and trying to play through the game. And it was insane. Like I'm just like I get out of the sewers and all of a sudden I'm just like in this vast world and I'm like, okay, what now? You know, like what am I doing? What am I doing now? And I got sucked in for like quite a while. Like I'm absolutely just sitting down after school and just playing the whole time and just trying to go through and just being the most inefficient way to like level my characters and stuff. But like that magic is now gone for me, right? Like once I got into the game of efficiency, the game of like, okay, well I've been through this before. I've been through an MMO. I've been through the level grind. I know what this thing is going to end up being. It kind of takes a little bit of the magic away, but there's something about competitive games that just like drive that home for me and like really sit me into a thing. Like, for forever and a day. Like I mean, as much as I fucking think that League of Legends is literally heroin, and I never want to play that game ever again, um, I have put, jeez, yeah, easily 1,000 hours plus into that game, plus thousands of dollars as well too. I think the last time I checked, I was up to at least like 3 grand or something like that. Like
Yeah.
stupid amounts of money, but you're just not going to get that feeling out of a lot of different games. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing that's constantly driven me forward. Something I try to drive into every game that I make now is like, if I always try to just like push the social aspect as much as possible. How can players communicate with each other and work together within the space rather than it's like, here's this mobile game that is like this level curve, and yeah, sure, everybody's around you and you see all these other players and it's massively multiplayer, blah blah blah, but like you've no crossover social mechanics. Like, how can players like help interact and like push forward theirs? All of that UX and game features and stuff like that, those are the things that I give a shit about. Um, I think there's like a really cool game. I can't even tell you what the hell it's called, but like it's like Cycle of Life. It's like you start like
Oh,
every person is playing, but like you if you die you reset, right? And it's like everybody has like a little role that you have to play within this village to keep everybody like being able to stay alive and bring everybody up as much as possible, right? And then over time you end up starting as a child and you go off and you do this, and if you do this then you're supporting other people from like surviving, and they're going to help you to get to the adult stage, and once you get to the adult stage you have a different role and you have to help out here. It's not like go off, do whatever you want to do, um, or anything like that. And that's like a really interesting one to me, because if you match that with a different indie game, I can't remember what the hell it's called, but I read it in a book a few years ago, where they set up an arcade machine at one of these conferences, and it was everybody had like 15 seconds to play, and that's all you had, right? And every 15 seconds your character reset, but you were put into like a maze that had doors and switches and pathways and different ways that you could go to, like that you had to keep going. But the further that you pushed down, right, so the person before you would get you a little bit further, right? So like they might walk into a room, press a button, that opens a door. Okay, well now your 15 seconds is up. Next player. Well, okay, well now that door is open. I don't need to flick that switch, so I don't need to lose time doing that. So now I'm going to go straight into the other room and do the next thing that I need to do. oh, okay, cool. I just unlocked a teleporter now to the like this third room. Great. Well, now we're gonna go. The next person's gonna go and then take the teleporter, go to there, figure out the puzzle that they need to do over there. Hey, now they got a key. Well, oh, well, what does that key do? And then it takes a couple of players to figure out where does the key go? How do you get to the, we already have the key, so we don't need to go back to room 3 ever again. Let's go to room 4, and that type of social play is super interesting because it's like selfless play, right? I'm constantly pushing down this track to try and help everybody else before me, or everybody else after me, to be as successful as they can be. And again, like those are the types of feelings that I think that I would like to have more within the games that I interact with or like work on or anything like that. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to like do that conceptually because there's like a lot of foundational building blocks that have to be there for you to actually get to that point, you know.
I like the messaging of that game because that's how humans work in general and civilization. We all stand on the shoulders of the last generation. And the last
We don't
generation.
give a fuck, dude. Are you kidding me? Fuck boomers. Fuck these. No, I am a fucking.
Aside from
I,
that,
I, d- I agree with you, but I don't agree. You know what I mean? It's one of
yeah,
those things where I think like modern history, we don't think about, humans only ever think about like their time on this earth as like corporeal, like this, they think of it as like this never ending cycle of like we're always here and consuming, especially in the States. It's crazy in the States comparatively to the rest of the world and everything like
yeah,
that. Like it
I
is
agree.
really a American problem, but like
I
it is
agree.
consume, consume, consume. I'm always going to be here. Give me everything that I can right now
Yeah.
and kind of fuck everything else. Like, fuck every other generation. Fuck where any of this stuff even came from. Like, it's so funny. Like, I love my girlfriend, right? So, I mean, we have our problems, but, like, I do love her. But, like, I mean, the first times dating her and being around her family and stuff like that, like, they're out in Vegas and her brother is just like washing dishes but just running the tap the entire time, right? Just has the hot water tap
Oh
running,
yeah.
not even touching the sink, not even actually doing anything in the sink, but just running the hot water. And I'm like, "Oh my god, like do you even you're in Vegas, like dude, fucking where do you think any of this comes from?" And then like his sister, my girlfriend, like her sister, then goes and like he's like, "Hey, like come on, turn off the tap. Like you're not even using it. Like turn off the tap." And he just goes and looks at her and like turns it on and just stares at it. And I'm like, this is the same people who eat off of like paper plates for like every meal. It's like my sister does the same thing with her whole family, like just paper plates every single meal, and it's like throw it all in the trash. Don't even try to recycle. Like don't you know what I mean? Just fuck the environment, fuck everything around you. Just burn it all to hell, dude. Just who cares? So
America certainly lives in excess, and the recent re-release of the Double Down KFC sandwich is indicative of that. Which is instead of bread for your sandwich, is 2 fried chicken slices
why do you have to
pieces.
depress me like that? Why do you have to depress me like that?
Okay, well, let me bring it back to positive. You said a lot of really good things. It's interesting because we're waxing nostalgic about old social games that we've played, and another one of my top 5 is DDR, which is actually a very social game if you go to the arcades. Because when I was a teen, I didn't have too many friends I didn't have too many friends growing up. But once I started playing DDR, it literally forced me into that arcade social environment that had a ton of people there. So um, it has a massive social aspect to it. But one thing I want to say about that is that nowadays they actually still do have some really interesting social events going on. And one of these examples is actually Fortnite.
Hmm.
So I don't play Fortnite, but I do occasionally follow it, and they have these events that are very very tight social experiences. So for example, there's one where you hop in with 3 other friends, and then you do these crazy things, kind of like what you described in a way, like you hop in a giant mech like a Megazord, and now you're all four of you are piloting a Megazord. It's a cinematic experience, not too different than a theme park ride. So the kids are getting some really nice social experiences that they're probably gonna be nostalgic about in the same way that we are right now. So I think it does still exist, but we're not necessarily consuming it.
Yeah, no,
But
for
but uh
sure.
but I have a question because this was brought up at the meetup. So one person talked about his favorite games were like Mario 64 and something similar to that. But he talked about how there was a magic, and you said that too. You said the word magic. He said there's a magic to old games and exploring and discovering all these secrets on your own and all these things. But like nowadays, we do have the internet and Twitch streamers, and in some ways, like all these secrets like kind of go away. So first off, in your WoW rating days, how much did you guys reference like videos, and how much did you guys come up with your own strategy?
There was always some other guild that was always pushing. There's always the harder guilds like Method and stuff like that. They've always been around, pushing guilds as hard as possible, right? So the raid leader would usually come in and have a strategy. They would know the mechanics inside, not inside and out, but they would have at least read up on the whole thing.
Mhm.
And everybody else we had our own little, lessons that we needed to know. And but for the most part, like when you are pushing that stuff, everything is coming in as fast as possible, right? So like these days, when WoW content drops, or like on the PTR, like the public test realms and stuff like that, you'll have these guys who have already played against these bosses and have already beat them at those levels, and then those guides are already made. So like, de- depending on what's on live versus what's on PTR, like a lot of people have already seen it and kind of like faced it, so there is content there for it. Sometimes I wouldn't want to try to ruin it too much for myself, but I would just mostly just like watch a video maybe one time and then kind of just listen to the raid leader and then just like watch the mechanics, because it was mostly just about like, okay, like how can I execute on this, rather than like, hey, can I just ruin it for myself, you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, sure, like let's do a process, let's do something like that, but I didn't always want to go and like completely ruin it. We would always have those first like 5 or 6, we'd always have those first wipes, the first times that like everybody's kind of like getting up to speed and everybody's kind of like learning it. So it's like it's okay to not necessarily know everything, but when you're trying to do like deep progression runs, like you better know your shit, like, and you better have everything
Yeah,
ready.
yeah,
So it was always usually like day two that I would be like, okay, let's actually like read some stuff. Let's really get into it. Like I felt it out. Now I know where the pain points are. I know like where I need to improve on, like where I'm like falling down, like where I could heal better, like where I can get more stuff in. And then I'd just be checking numbers, because everybody had logs, everybody was like doing everything else. So I'd just be kind of like using the first day as like a diagnostic test, and then after that it would be like, okay, like I need to be top of the healing chain. Like who's the best shamans on this, and what are their ratings? Like how are they setting up their stuff? Like what abilities are they using at what times? And that's when you start getting into the deeper side of like the just being more efficient. To like push deeper, be the best that you can be in your role. That was kind of like the
okay,
main thing. Yeah. But no,
yeah,
I feel you. Like, I mean, there's definitely like magic that's like gone. I don't know if it's gone completely, but like I think it's just different. Like I think I keep saying that like I just want somebody to bring out a book that is like game features and mechanics 2.0, and it just has every one of these prosthetized game mechanics that we have inside of every single one of these games right now. Like, hey, you're making a non-linear story, or you're making a linear story game like Uncharted or anything like that. Okay, well, great. Let's look at the examples of what this is. Oh, it's third person over the shoulder. Okay, well, this is how you should be setting that up, because we all end up, there's some best practices now that we like to do with our stuff, but it puts us in a little bit more of a box. So we don't get like the Ico anymore for third person. We don't get the Link Ocarina of Time as much. And looking back to the past, we've forgotten more than we've figured out. Like,
Yeah.
I think of like Enter the Matrix, like with the first Matrix game that came out on the PlayStation 2 or
Yeah.
whatever like that, right? Like these were like pretty crazy revolutionary games, but a lot of them kind of came from like this feeling of Max Payne, and Max Payne by itself is like you could go back and play Max Payne 2 right now and it's fucking great. It's brilliant.
Yes.
And it's some of these games are doing things that we weren't doing 10 years later. You know, we just like forgot. We just
I
forgot how to
agree
do them, you
so
know?
much. I agree so much.
Um so it's one of those things that like we should always be looking to the past, you know, just if nothing else, just to make sure that we don't forget the because I think this is the biggest thing for me is that um, humans are patternistic, right? We get into generationals and cycles of patterns that are hard to break. And when a culture, when we're stuck in a culture of a pattern, we inevitably end up cycling around that pattern quite considerably, and we don't break the pattern as much as when it's the wild west of fucking iPhone fucking ooh, drinking your shit. How cool is that? Flashlight. You know what I mean? Like we don't we don't think down those lines anymore because it's like it's almost gone. And VR should feel like that, but there's also a lot of things that are prescribed onto VR right now, and not necessarily. Like whatever barrier to entry. I think that that's all dropping pretty hardcore. Facebook, PlayStation's got their headset. Like all of these things are pretty are available, a lot more available, and are I think in more consumers' hands than we think. It's just playtime and setup is like the bigger problem, but um, we're not necessarily like doing crazy things. You know, it's like Crash Bandicoot 2 Warped is probably one of those games that I would say like people should, if you're gonna go and play a platformer, you're gonna go make a platformer, you better go back and go play that game. You better go back and play that game because there's some simplicity in even the stylization of the entire like how they create the worlds and how you can just go anywhere you want and kind of be that TARDIS and do whatever you really feel like doing that I think is extremely important and freeing that we've kind of lost. It's like, no, everything needs to be in the world and everything needs to be no, just make it cracked, just make it crazy,
Yeah.
you know.
I
Um,
think you harp on some important points that I think are worth zeroing in on. So, like you mentioned, we are patternistic, and the thing about like fun and wonder and all this stuff is like if you're not getting surprised, you are not being like put into the sense of awe and wonder that like some of the older games might do. And because like you said, you played Morrowind, and Morrowind was amazing. But
Oblivion,
now,
Morrowind was
oh, I'm sorry.
I
Yeah,
played
yeah, Oblivion.
afterwards and I hated.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I played it. I instantly ran out of the tutorial zone. Instantly ran into a major city that I was way
Oh,
under leveled for. I found a mud crab. I tried beating it up with my hands. Or no, I stole a staff. I died multiple times. I save scummed, got the staff, ran out of the city, tried to beat up a mud crab. The mud crab had a higher attack and level to me, so it kept dodging all of my attacks, and I kept doing zero damage and just missing, and then it fucking killed me, and I was like, I'm never playing this game ever again. Never in a
yes,
day.
of course you got skill issued by the mud crab,
Bullshit.
but but yeah, now you might hop into something like Breath of the Wild, and like if I'm understanding you correctly, you're like, well, I've kind of seen open world games. I know they're very different games, but you're like a little bit of that magic is a little bit gone.
Oh, it's totally gone.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild does
Yeah.
not grip me.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't grip me at all.
Exactly.
Maybe some
Uh
Mario games would, right? Like some Paper Mario might, and I
yeah.
wouldn't mind playing some of the other Mario games, but Like, I have a Switch. I bought that thing last year or 2 years ago or something. Literally never touched it.
Mhm.
It sits and fucking collects dust. Like, it's I have a my boys are playing Borderlands 2 again, you know? And it's like they're playing Borderlands 2 on the Switch, so I bought it and I downloaded it and I haven't even booted it up again. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, like if you subscribe to some definitions of fun, well, okay, regardless of the definition of fun, the opposite of fun is boredom, and you get bored when you do something over and over, or you do something that you've already seen before. Um, so and to jump on what you said about those games, like I played Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is like and Hades. Both Hollow Knight and Hades are definitely objectively amazing games. Both games I didn't play very long. I've played
yeah,
Metroidvanias before they were even popular.
yeah.
I played Hades style stuff. So
That's what I
uh,
thought too. Hades, everybody
yeah,
was fucking like Hades is a objectively a
yeah,
good
it
game.
is a great game.
It
I'm
is
not
a
saying it's
great
bad.
game. But
Yeah.
I bought it. I played through and got to the end. I'm like, that's what this is? Like, I get it. I sure, whatever. All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's just all ruined for me. Like, maybe that's honestly just like what it becomes like sometimes. Like I mean, the reality is like I'm also not just playing games. You know what I mean? Like, it's playing games as work at the same time as well too. That definitely like hurts it. You know, if you have to hyper analyze every single game that you've ever played in your entire life, you know what I mean, all the way from Need for Speed Underground all the way up, and you've just been doing that, doing that, doing that. Like, it can get a little fucking tiresome. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then especially when you like feel like you've played better games in the past than some of the things that have come out, right? Like, how many different versions of Burnout are there? But what are the actual Burnout games that anybody that are actually worth a fucking damn? You know, Burnout 2 and Burnout 3. And not Paradise. That fucking shit sucked. And whatever other games that came out after that sucked. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like, I'm playing like Forza 5. I think Forza fucking sucks as well, too. It's just like, I feel like that they were, like, Gran Turismo 2 was fucking better than Forza 5 is. And I don't know why that's the case. But, like, I feel like it was just, like, even, like, I think that the physics were, like, probably written, not better. They're probably not written better. But, like, there's an overcomplication and an oversimplification that has happened at the same time, like, where graphics and stylization has gotten more complicated. But, like, the actual underlying, like, reasons why we're doing these things and moving through these games have simplified,
Yeah.
and I don't think that that's like the best thing in the world. I don't know what you do about that other than just keep on trucking, and just keep on playing things, but I don't know.
I don't know. And actually, I do have a theory about that. I think going back to like Super Mario, like Mario 64 and all the secrets and stuff. I feel like games are yeah they are driven by bigger producers. Games are massively profitable now, and I feel like it's harder to go to your boss and say, let's add in these little secrets that don't move the needle.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more streamlined. They're like, what moves the needle? More quests. Let's throw in more quests. Like they don't throw in some of the little surprising things that aren't obviously good.
No, it's a
Um,
hits driven industry, and
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of money and a lot of things that
yeah,
ride on the line to like
yeah.
get these things to where they need to be. And
People take less risks for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, or we're taking risks in like different places on technology and stuff like that than where they necessarily used to be. But I think that there's also a humongous amount of risk in like we didn't have real great tools. Like everybody was just writing everything from the ground up. Like
Yeah,
the amount of like on the fly fucking memory management that we had to do. Like I remember like even just working on Xbox 360 games and the game crashes if you run out of memory for like what you're allocated. If you try to write into more memory than you have, game crashes. You can't do that. You have to write your own memory buffers. You got to do everything. Like these days, it's like, oh, what is that? You know what I mean? And I think John Carmack has talked about this plenty of times. If you can go find like any of his like crazy like dev talks or anything, it's that like we have abstracted APIs on top of APIs to abstract away the creativity of like everything that you could do on the CPU GPU layer, and not knowing where any of those things are give us the better ability for more people to make games. And the more people that make games, the more games go out to the market, the more mediocre experiences there are, the more
Yeah.
that being a like a standout interesting game is harder to be, because it's like now it's gone into the marketing side, right? Like it's not just about making an interesting and unique game. It's like you have to get that and get it in front of eyeballs way before you've even thought about shipping your game, so that you have like this idea. But before, you could just go and say, yeah, PlayStation, Sony, or any of these people, like, hey, like, here's our one pager. We're planning on making this. This is what we've made in the past. Can we do it? And they're like, sure. And then you get a launch slot, and all of a sudden, like, you're on the thing, and you're on the shelf, and you're just there, and we just get a lot more nuance there. But I mean, I don't know. It's like Prince of Persia used to be like one of the greatest games like back in the day, right? 3D platformer, running on walls, like never
Rewind time.
rewind
Oh, wait,
time.
wait, wait. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you meant the original.
yeah, yeah, no, the original with the dagger, and then later on they had a sword and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, but like, how many games do rewinding time right now? You know, like, how many times have you seen rewinding time back in the
Right.
thing?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
has it ever been as kind of like as like crispy, as like
Right.
as simple as I have three time crystals, or three times that I could use this ability, and like I have a very complicated camera system with a 3D character, and I have to execute these moves perfectly, and it just gives me the ability to rewind and try to get it right. And if I don't get it right, then cool, boop, 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 pop back, do it again, and I don't fail. I don't. I failed, but I soft failed. I didn't reset the game. You've died. Blah blah blah. So like it fixed like a major problem in platformers, where like if you didn't execute perfectly, you failed and you've hurt yourself and you've lost a life or whatever, right? And it solved like a big problem. But I mean, I don't know if there's not enough. Maybe there's just not enough of those things. I don't know. I mean, shit, dude. Like the original Harry Potter game. You know what I mean? Chamber of Secrets or whatever it was. That was great. I mean, these things were new and unique and probably just like good experiences. But I think that's also just what you get from looking at it through younger eyes as well, too.
Yeah. That kind of teased me up for the final question I want to ask, relating to basically all of this,
Okay.
which is as you get older and play more games, and have more under your belt, is the magic always going to be gone? Is the magic always going to be in your earlier experiences? And for me, I'll fire off my answer first. I think it is yes, because I think you need a new experience, a new pattern to recognize, pattern match to evoke that awe and wonder. So I think as you play through all your games throughout your life, I think it is. It seems to be an unfortunate consequence, especially for a game dev, which is that the magic will be gone. So let me know your answer to the question.
Uh, I think that there's like this interesting thing where I am not the majority, so I can't speak for everybody. And there's absolutely times where new games have hit me with some magic. Right, I'm playing a bit of New World right now. I played it in alpha, I played it in beta. I stopped playing when the game released, and I haven't played for quite a while. I decided to come back to the game, and they've added a couple of different things, like playing music and some flutes. They've filled out the world a lot more. But I enjoy it. I sit down and I enjoy it. I sit down and I want to play the game. I want to get into the world. I want to get immersed into it. I tried finding a noob friendly, social guild so that I could talk to people and do the same things and get their opinions on how they feel about the game and what's right and what's wrong and everything else like that. And I think that it's nice to be able to. I will continue to have those moments. The Last of Us Part 2 was one of those. It was a brilliant game. I played it from end to end, totally enthralled, and played something that I haven't played before, something that I truly enjoyed and will remark upon for quite a while later on. It'll always have a slot there somewhere in my mind. Um, I think that older games have this physicality to them that I think that is also an interesting thing that doesn't cross over into this timeline. So we used to get CDs, right? We used to get cartridges. We'd go into a physical store and see these things on a shelf and pull them down, and you wouldn't have game trailers. You didn't have reviews. You just kind of had whatever was there that kind of like piqued your interest, or maybe you just got it as like a present and you played it, right? And you just kind of enjoyed that matter of fact, right? But you have to think, remember, like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, like these things had boxes. They had art inside of them. They had a sleeve that you could look through and read through, and it's almost like having a vinyl, like not to be the things, but vinyls are crushing CDs in sales right now, like by like 60%. Like vinyls are just you'll just vinyl stores by themselves do well. People want vinyl. Um, and it's not just because it's an older medium, but because of everything that comes around it. The packaging, it's bigger. The art on the inside, that you open it up, the sleeve, the fold, the style of the disc itself, like, can be different. You can get limited edition ones that have been made out of not just like black, vinyl, but like see-through crazy colors and everything else like that, right? We don't have those things these days. Like, you go into a store for a fucking Nintendo game, yeah, or not even a Nintendo game. Like, there was a period, and I can't remember what console or whatever, but where you would go into the store, buy the box, but get a download code. Like, there's nothing in the box. Like, I bought this piece of plastic to get a fucking key that then I plug into the store, and then it downloads, and I'm like, there's some magic that's lost just through that. That
Sure.
I think that like we won't rekindle because it doesn't cost, and it's so easy just to be on Steam, on Epic, on any of these things, and just be like, one click download, get that, rather than having that whole build up moment of like, go to the store, pick up a physical thing, get a physical item, plug that physical item in. It's all arted all across the thing, and you're excited the whole moment of like getting up to that point that we don't that I generally think is like kind of just is a miss. Is a
in
miss.
the car ride coming back from the store, I used to read the instruction manuals, which no longer exist,
Yeah.
and that would build up some hype as I got ready for the game.
The PS1 ones were huge. Like, the manuals would
Oh
be like
yeah!
this
Oh my
big,
god!
you know?
Yeah,
Like, they tell you
yeah,
every enemy and every mob, and have
yeah,
all of like
yeah,
some concept art and stuff like that in there,
yeah.
and you mean we don't have that now, and then
Yeah,
yeah, so it's just like onboarding from that side. You were kind of stuck with your decision. Nobody bought something and then returned it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
you were gonna play that game regardless, and you were gonna play it to the end. So you just didn't really care all that much, and you just wanted to get immersed into it as much as possible. So um, I don't know. I just think that there's just some loss there that I think that is still found in the game itself. Like, there are still obviously just some good games out there. There obviously will
Mhm.
be just good
Yeah, yeah.
games. There will continue to be good games. I probably won't fucking make them. They won't be for me. It won't be for
Yeah.
me, but you know, it'll happen.
Yeah, and I want to make a comment to perhaps the younger people, if anybody on ever sees this, for our audience, which is that uh, we're not necessarily just totally being nostalgic about the old games. It's that if you are, for the kids that are growing up on Hades right now, they will have amazing memories of this.
Hmm.
And I do feel like if they are active gamers for 40 years, they're gonna be like, I've seen it all, and they can't be impressed. I think I feel like it's kind of inevitable if you are that active.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You'll find your niche. You'll find something that tickles your
yeah,
fancy, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
You'll find something.
It's not all doom and gloom, but I can almost guarantee that your like favorite game of all time will probably be maybe from your teens to 25 or something like that.
Well, here's the other
Like
reality too, is like I mean for me, especially on the social competitive games, right? Like I just want to be competitive. That's what I want to be. One, I don't have the time to put into the
yeah,
games to be
yeah.
competitive anymore. Two, I actually just like don't think that I can think that fast anymore. Like I actually don't think that I can kind of keep up on the pace of like what I need to do. So like I fall back into my own patterns. If it's Counter Strike, it's like yeah, cool. Like the maps are the same, but if the map changes to something that I don't know, it's like oh okay, well we're a little fucking we're a little lost, you know. So it's like there's just a catch 22 with it all. But you know, look, there's just gonna be different games. Yeah, I mean the kids that are playing Fortnite now that have grown up with Fortnite, you know, I mean the game's been out for long enough now, are just gonna have the same kind of great experiences that we had, but just like more socially, and you know they're gonna be the kids who like grew up just straight playing Minecraft and everything like that. They're gonna have their own kind of formulation of like how those things go, and those will be formative, but every generation's got their formativity with those things. As you go forward, you'll just see a lot more of the same stuff. It's just that the hope
Mhm.
is that the cream rises to the top. We just keep getting more interesting experiences. We're not just like constantly bouncing around the same concepts all the time.
Yes. Please try not to.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Calvin. Thank you, dude.
Yeah.